I'd like to call to order the November 24th meeting of the Shelby Township Planning Commission. Madam Secretary, would you call the roll, please?
Mr. Dallo?
Here.
Ms. DeSico?
Here.
Ms. Casali?
Here.
Mr. Bernardi? Absent. Mr. Wexmonski?
Here.
Mr. Apone? Absent. Mr. Vire? Absent. Chairman Moffett, we have a quorum.
Great, thank you. First item is approval of the agenda. If there are no amendments, corrections,
So move.
Support.
moved by Moore, support by DeSico. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, motion carries. Next item is approval of the minutes from the November 10th meeting. Again, if there are no corrections to those minutes, I'll entertain a motion. Moved by Dalu.
Support.
Support by DeSico. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, motion carries. Okay, this evening we have two primary items. The first being a site plan number 14-37, Paul Shoemaker, Oscar Larson Company, regarding a canopy over to cover a fueling island at 50995 Van Dyke. Is the petitioner or representative here? Okay, so if I could have you state your name and address for the record, and then the reasons and your request and what the reasons are.
Okay, my name's Paul Schmucker. I'm with Oscar W. Larson. The address is 10100 Dixie Highway, Clarkston. I'm here representing Nightingale Service. They want to put in a 25 by 50 canopy out on the Van Dyke roadside to cover their two existing fueling islands. They already have a fueling island on the 23-mile side, and they just want to be able to provide one for the Van Dyke side also.
Okay. Mr. Nguyen.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, it's a pretty straightforward submission. Several years ago, we amended the zoning ordinance to update the standards for gas stations and canopies, and it works a lot better than it did in the past. The canopy can encroach into the front yard setback, provided that the vehicle circulation is maintained, and there's nothing being changed on the site. There used to be a pump island in this location as well. The height of the canopy is fine. The ordinance does require, it says it should be attached to the building, but it gives the commission some discretion. That works better for new sites where you see canopies are more like attached to buildings. It's very common. But in this particular instance, it would be awkward, I think, and just not fit very well. So the ordinance gives you the discretion. I don't think it's necessary. We would like, I asked Mr. Schumacher for a architectural rendering of the canopy, just to see what it's going to look like, also with the details on the column material and the fire protection devices. Very complete submission, and we support it, and there's a motion to that effect in my staff review.
Great, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
To the board, any questions of the petitioner? A bunch of shaking heads, so I think, no.
Mr. Chairman,
Mr. Wexmonski.
I noticed in the note part there, it said that the columns have to be surrounded with brick.
Or another material that's compatible. So we just, sometimes, and more often than not, they're just, instead of just having the steel columns, they're more of a concrete post that's kind of consistent with the canopy. So we just want to know what it's going to be. In this case, I don't think brick would be the most appropriate material.
No,
I kind of questioned that, whether it was any kind of surrendering or any kind of surround would be needed at all. I mean,
we just want to know what it's going to be.
yeah, the canopy itself, the columns are going to be painted a Sunoco gray color per their specifications. Primer than the paint on it, and that's basically what the other canopy on the site has right now.
So I-beam.
Yeah. Yep.
Fine, as long as they're consistent
okay
color.
Yep.
I thought brick would be an overkill.
I think in this case it would be too.
Any other questions?
Chairman,
Mr. Dell.
is Oscar Larson the owner of the property, or
No,
just
Nightingale is the owner of the property.
so the site plan will be submitted to us?
No, the way it worked is that this company is a specialist in this kind of operation, and they submitted it on behalf of Mr. Nightingale, which is acceptable.
Okay. Mr. Dallo?
I want to make a motion to approve the site plan for Paul Shoemaker, Oscar Larson Company for New Pump Island canopy at 50995 Van Dyke, subject to the submission of a revised plan addressing all department comments.
Support.
Moved by Dallo, support by Casali. Any questions on the motion? Hearing none, I'll call the roll. Commissioner Dalu.
Yes.
Commissioner Casale.
Yes.
Commissioner DeSico.
Yes.
Commissioner Moore.
Yes.
Commissioner Waxmansky.
Yes.
And the chair votes yes. Good luck.
Oh, just one question, Mr. Nguyen. You're asking still for a rendering, architectural rendering for how the canopy is going to be. And then are we all set how the canopy columns itself are going to be then?
Well,
Painted?
that's more of a question for the building department.
Okay.
There are just a few minor site plan adjustments that we'll want. We'll get copies of those, and we'll stamp
Okay.
and sign them. But yeah, the rest of it's building department related.
Okay, gotcha. Okay, thank you. Thank
Okay.
you. Yeah, have a nice holiday.
Thank you, you too. Okay, next item is a public hearing for site plan number 14-36, PUD number 7. I'll first begin by asking the secretary to read the notices published.
Charter Township of Shelby, notice of public hearing. Notice is hereby given that the Planning Commission for the Charter Township of Shelby, Macomb County, Michigan, has received a request for approval of the following planned unit development. Applicant Edward A. Mancini, Legacy Village Land Holdings, LLC, 6850 19 Mile Road, Sterling Heights, Michigan, 48314. Proposed use, multiple family phase 2 and commercial. Location, west side of Van Dyke, south side of 25 Mile Road. Parcel number 23-07-09-200-019 and 23-07-09-200-005. Legal description is as follows. The Planning Commission will meet on Monday, November 24th, 2014 at 7 p.m. in the Shelby Municipal Building, 52700 Van Dyke, Shelby Township, Michigan, 586-726-7243 for the purpose of holding a public hearing on the planned unit development application. The application for planned unit development and the site plan may be examined at the Planning and Zoning Department in the Municipal Building Monday through Friday from 8:30 a.m. to 5 p.m. Written comments may be submitted to the Planning Commission at the above address prior to the hearing. Oral comments will be heard during the public hearing. This notice is provided pursuant to the requirements of Michigan Public Act 110 of 2006 as amended. Shelby Township Planning Commission, Jerome Moffitt, Chair, Raquel Moore, Secretary. This was published in the Shelby Utica News on November 5th, 2014. There were 44 property owners and 3 applicants were notified on November 7th, 2014.
Okay, thank you. To our attorney, Ms. Dunawith, did the publication meet all legal requirements?
Yes, it does.
Okay. And then could you explain the uses under the present zoning and if the special land use request is appropriate to this district?
Yes, Mr. Chair. The present zoning is, existing zoning is R1, B, and C2, which is residential and commercial. Residential is governed by Article 9 of the Shelby Township zoning ordinance and includes residential development. Commercial is covered by Article 10. This is a planned unit development application pursuant to Shelby Township Ordinance Section 13.37. This is an appropriate application pursuant to the development ordinances.
Great, thank you. Secretary Moore, did we receive any correspondence regarding this request?
Yes, we did, Mr. Chair. Just one piece from Richard Jacklin, and he's in full support of this project.
Okay, great. Thank you. The format for the public hearing this evening will be as follows. The petitioner or representative will give a presentation stating the reasons for the request. Commissioners may then ask questions of the petitioner. I'll then open the floor to the public for questions, comments, and then allow the petitioner to come up and make their concluding remarks. At this time, I ask the petitioner to come on up and if I can get your name and address for the record, please.
Good evening, all. Edward A. Mancini. I'm the owner, one of the owners of Legacy Land Holdings, and this is phase 2 of a PUD that has been in the works since I think 2006. The phase 2 was modified earlier this year, reducing the density for a 10-plex building that's on the lower there. It's been a great success here in Shelby Township, just north of 25 Mile Road. With that, the clubhouse and a little bit of commercial, I feel it's consistent with the original planning back down in 2006 with these small changes. Besides that, I can answer any questions. I don't know what else to say about the development.
Okay. I'll tell you, at this point, I'm going to ask the planning director for his comments.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Mancini's assessment's correct. This does go back to 2006. And again, in 2006, we approved an overall concept plan for this development, and then they come in for individual site plan phases. Up till now, there's been 2 final phases approved. One was for the single family, and Ed, if you could point out where that is. 79 single-family lots that were approved. Those are under construction. And then the second site plan was for the bank at the corner. So this would be actually the 3rd phase of the overall project, or the 2nd phase of the residential. And at this stage, we're looking at the final site plan. As Mr. Mancini correctly noted, they were here earlier this year for some adjustment to the concept plan where the density actually reduced, which is kind of unique. So at this stage, we're looking at final details. And as part of a PUD, you have the discretion to make modifications to the zoning standards, and there's a few of those items here. What I have left are a few minor details, trash enclosure details for the screening, for the retail buildings. There's a couple areas where there's a deviation from the standards. The light fixtures are 4 feet taller than we allow, 14 feet versus 10 feet. Buildings R, S, T, U, and V, which are the fourplex buildings, don't meet the perimeter or the internal setback requirements. There's some additional landscaping provided to account for that. There's the green belt along the front yard on Van Dyke for the Van Dyke commercials, 9 feet. It should be 10 feet. And they are showing some parallel parking along the main roads for additional parking for guests and visitors. So those are the areas where they deviate modestly from the ordinance. And I think given the scale of this project and how it's been designed, I think there are appropriate adjustments, are really modest in terms of scope. We need details for HVAC equipment on the retail buildings and just a designation where the common open space is. Items 9 through 14 in my review letter relate to other departments. Those will typically be handled when it goes to building department or engineering. Comments from engineer are provided. Again, many of those are detailing issues. I would ask that they be corrected before we send this to the board, but there's nothing in there which would be a design change offered for this project. Again, a very competent submission, very competent presentation by this development group.
Great. Thank you, Mr. Nguyen. Back to the board. Any questions for the petitioner? Commissioner Casale.
I do have one. On the sketches that you've submitted, the facades are very nice. What is how do you differentiate between the two? What is the top one?
Oh, I'm sorry. The top one is the clubhouse. That is.
Oh.
But those are going to be built. The 10plexes are the same ones that are being built on 25 Mile and Van Dyke, just north side 25 Mile Road. And it's going to be similar colors and the very traditional look. One of the things I did want to add, I forgot to mention, is that with our redesign earlier this year, it does add extra green space just to phase 2.
I have a question,
Okay.
Mr. Chair.
Commissioner
Hi, Mr.
Moore.
Mancini. Beautiful development, by the way. I do have a question on the retail in front, right on Van Dyke there, the 2,300 square feet of that separate, is that a restaurant or, not sure, it looks like a drive-through. Is there a drive-through?
The very east side, we kind of left that one like an out parcel in case there's like some type of drive-through restaurant, if that, I don't know, say Tim Hortons or
Or a coffee
some
shop.
type of some type of drive-through there. The other ones, we kind of designed it for more of like a sit-down cafe area, given a lot of space in between the buildings, a lot of space up in front, so they can do a little bit of seating if that, if the tenant would like to do so. But there's still a lot of work we got to do on design for that. The main purpose is to get the multiple in today, and really the anchor building in back. We're weeks away of signing a deal with a large tenant there, which will really bring us back in and get that finalized. But we've got to get this moving because they have to be open by Christmas of next year if they ink the deal this month.
Great, thank you.
Any additional thoughts on the bank property that you brought well, maybe 4 or 5 months ago. You still,
You talking about the corner?
yeah, that corner, it wasn't there, when you redesigned the little green space area right just south of the commercial there.
Phase 4, I think it shows Phase 4.
No, up that corner there, right.
Yeah, our last meeting, we're leaving it open. We have it designed so it can either go commercial with a big box user like, say a Kroger. It's a perfect size for a Kroger. If not, we're leaving the spurs so it can fill up with the multiple. Until there's so much there to build, we're going to leave that open until we know which way we can go.
Mr. Chairman, I would expect that you wouldn't see many changes on the residential part of this, but there may be some fine-tuning on the commercial as tenants become available. I mean,
Yes.
and if that happens, we'll bring them back to show you. So there'll be a running dialogue with, I don't want to do that administratively. I'd like it wouldn't require public hearing, but to the extent there's changes, I'd want the commission to see those again.
Yeah, we're gladly show you that. Same thing with the big box. We're going to have to show you how it's going to be built out inside until the tenant works with our architects. This is more just showing you the footprint.
Right.
We'll work within that footprint.
Gotcha. Okay. Any other questions?
Mr. Chairman,
Mr. Waxman-Sky?
question to Mr. Nguyen. Your comment number 6 says the location and dimensions on-street parking should be noted. So we're going to allow, or they're designing on-street parking.
Yes.
This is parallel parking, typically not permitted by the zoning ordinance, but certainly would be desirable in this situation. So bottom line, is this headed for on-street parking?
Yes.
Or not headed for on-street parking?
Yes, they will. In fact, when I was looking at the cross-section, the road is exceptionally wide, that main road, like 36 feet. It's like that's more width than you need unless you really want to pave that extra area. And their designer indicated they were intending to have on-street parking, which I think would be very effective because they each have they have a two-car attached garage and an apron, which is very similar to a single-family home. Having that on-street parking gives them the visitor parking that we need. I just want to know where it's located so the fire marshal can sign off of it, because there may be some areas where the fire marshal doesn't want the on-street parking.
I could see the on-street parking very desirable.
Yeah.
Why would our zoning ordinance not permit it?
Well, we probably need to go back and revisit that, but typically, oftentimes, when you have a site that has parallel parking, they do it because they can't fit it in another way, and sometimes it's awkward and hard to use. In this case, it's effective and meaningful, but I've seen it put together on site plans where it shouldn't be, and it's just a way to satisfy the ordinance requirement for parking. It's not good parking. This would work.
So I'm strongly in favor of it, it's just, I'm not strongly in favor of the zoning.
I think we need to make an adjustment,
Not
Mr. Waxman.
permitting it.
Yeah.
I'm finished, thank you.
Okay. Any other questions? Seeing none? Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, this is the only public hearing the Planning Commission will hold on this special land use request. All remarks will be entered into the record for Township Board evaluation. We are a recommending body, and the Township Board will evaluate our recommendation, which is the legislative body. The Township Board will make final decision on this special land use request. At this time, anyone from the audience is free to come and ask a question, make a comment, state their opinion. Does anyone wish to comment on this? Going once, going twice. Okay, back to the board. Any final comments, Mr. Mancini? Very good. Okay. At this point, I'll entertain a motion to close the public hearing.
The public
Moved by Dowd, supported by DeSico. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, motion carries. Our recommendation this evening must be based on the following standards: compatibility with adjacent land uses, consistent with and promote the intent and purposes of the special land use, compatibility with the natural environment, consistent with capacities of public services and facilities affected by the proposed use, protect the public health, safety, and welfare, and the adequacy of public access to the site. At this point, we may recommend approval, disapprove the request, or table it to evaluate the information further. At this time, I'll entertain a motion. Commissioner Casale?
I move to recommend approval to the Township Board of Planned Unit Development Application Number 14-36 PUD-7 for Legacy Village Phase 2 to permit the development of a mixed-use residential and commercial project based on the following findings. Number 1, the final site plan is consistent with the revised preliminary plan approved earlier this year by the Planning Commission and Township Board. Number 2, the design provides appropriate land use relationships within the project and to existing development in the vicinity. Number 3, the project achieves the PUD objective of encouraging innovative site and building design. Number 4, the proposed development will not adversely impact any surrounding development. Number 5, a revised site plan addressing all department comments must be submitted to the Planning and Zoning Department for final approval. Number 6, the proposed deviations from existing zoning ordinance standards are modest in scope and may be allowed as part of the PUD approval process.
Support.
Okay, moved by Casali, support by Moore. Any questions on the motion? Hearing none, I'll call the roll. Commissioner Casali.
Yes.
Commissioner Moore.
Yes.
Commissioner Dalu.
Yes.
Commissioner DeSico.
Yes.
Commissioner Waxmansky.
Yes.
And Chair votes yes. Good luck.
Have a happy Thanksgiving.
You too.
You too.
Okay, next, Planning Director's report.
Nothing, Mr. Chairman.
Nothing?
Except this is the last, we have one more meeting this year, December, I think, jumping ahead. We'll have a meeting on the 8th, I believe it is.
Still thinking, is that?
Yes, but that'll be the last that'll be the only other meeting in December.
Okay. Any business from the floor? Does anyone want to address the body? I see none. If not, I'll entertain one more motion.
Motion to adjourn, Mr. Chair.
Favor?
Aye.
We're adjourned.